going to go ahead and get started with our program. We just have a few minutes of some remarks to be made, and then we'll be opening this new exhibit of Amoskeag Revisited, a 50-year retrospective. My name is Jeff Barraclough. I'm the Executive Director of the Manchester Historic Association and the Millyard Museum, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all here this evening. This is really a special exhibit commemorating the 50th anniversary of Amoskeag, A Sense of Place, A Way of Life, that opened 50 years ago this week at the Currier Gallery of Art, now the Currier Museum of Art, and also honors the legacy of that exhibit's curator, Randolph Langenbach, who is, we are so pleased to say, is with us here tonight. Randolph came out here for this exhibit from California, so it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. Thank you for being here. Also want to welcome his family who came with him, Fred Hertz, his partner, and his brother Ray Langenbach. Where is Ray? Also want to thank the folks from the Currier Museum of Art who are here tonight, Karen Papineau and others. Thank you for your support of this exhibit as well. I want to acknowledge someone else who could not be here tonight, Sergio Mondigliani. He worked with Randolph on this exhibit. He was unable to join us here tonight, but offered some really interesting recollections of installing that exhibit 50 years ago at the Currier that I would like to share his recollections with you now for a couple minutes. He writes, "The Currier Gallery, a prestigious and traditional art museum, took the unusual step of allowing Randolph to present the Amoskeag show in 1975. I recall, perhaps imperfectly, that the Currier told Rand he needed to bring someone in to help him with the execution of the Amoskeag project idea, which Rand had conceived and had spent a significant portion of the prior 10 years developing, along with his then wife and social historian, Dr. Tamara Haraven. Rand asked me if I was interested in this undertaking, and we agreed to pursue the exhibit design and installation aspects together. I was a bearded 29-year-old at the time with limited exhibit experience, and Rand similarly so. In our initial meeting with the Currier, the director, David Brooke, made very clear to us that in making the gallery space available, there were many limitations to his invitation, not the least of which was a low budget for the show and a major concern for the integrity of the building's walls and surfaces. Knowing of the incredible collection of materials and photographs that Rand had accumulated, the challenge for the exhibit design was how to develop economical and effective ways to present these elements and develop a pathway for the visitors throughout the collection without relying on the traditional approach of hanging objects on the wall or spacing a few items on the floor. But I knew Rand from our student years together at Harvard, and as young designers, both of us had experience with finding effective solutions at an inexpensive price point. So we set about devising an exhibit approach that would succeed in convincing the cautious director that we could pull this off. First, we needed to find ways to present Rand's photographs in very large format. I was familiar with a Boston outlet for hollow core wooden doors, and Rand and I were able to acquire a large lot of seconds, doors that had surface veneers that had been damaged or marred, for $5 a piece. And as a side note, many of those have been saved these past 50 years, and you will see in this exhibit. Second, using my theater experience of flying battens for sets and lighting, we developed the idea of suspending a linear grid of ordinary 2x4s from the gallery ceiling that allowed us an unrestricted ability to hang panels and objects wherever needed. As an added bonus, this linear ceiling grid provided a visual recall of the loom shuttles. Third, we used some of the Currier's display cubes, painted in a rich red, to place objects and develop the visitor path through the space. And last, I introduced Rand to Bernard Lacasse, a Cambridge graphics designer, who we asked to develop the fonts, signage systems, and explanatory panels used throughout. Our ingenuity and problem-solving skills were challenged throughout the lead-up to the installation of the show. We built a scale model of the gallery space with a layer of sand in the base that allowed us to stand up scale-sized cardboard cutouts in order to test routes and organizational ideas. This model was also instrumental in helping us explain to the Currier's staff what we intended, to help plan the lighting and to confirm that we had reasonable aisle widths to accommodate safety concerns. Rand also gradually saw our opportunities to expand outside the strict limits of the gallery, and with now more confident director, we developed an approach path from the lobby up to the main gallery. Rand added many touches to the displays, including his idea to photographically replicate the Amoskeag stair risers onto the marble staircase visitors had to climb to the second floor, just as the millworkers once climbed the steel stairs in the mills, embossed with the Amoskeag name to reach their workstations. And you'll see a visual of that, how it looked in the Currier in this exhibit. Sergio continues, I have two favorite memories. The first was watching Rand and an assistant develop his amazing photographs at a door size 3 by 7 feet in the old clawfoot bathtub of his Cambridge home, and then his invention and development of the required techniques to dry, then affix the photos to the hollow core door panels. The second was witnessing the extraordinary response of the community and the visitors on opening night, with some seeing themselves reflected back in Rand's photographs in the show. All this remains a bright memory for me, and my thanks go to Randolph for asking for my participation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce Robert Perot. Bob worked closely with Randolph and Tamara as the chief researcher, assistant, and oral history interviewer, and he will be saying a few words about the importance of that original exhibit 50 years ago. Bob.
Good evening, everyone. With the opening of the present exhibit, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Randolph Langenbach's original Amoskeag exhibit in the fall of 1975 at what was then called the Currier Gallery of Art, now the much larger multi-structured Currier Museum. Langenbach, a resident of Cambridge, Massachusetts in the 1960s, once told me that the Amoskeag Millyard, with its several mile-long rows of red brick mill buildings along the Merrimack River, first captivated his attention as he rode through Manchester on the Everett Turnpike to and from ski trips in the White Mountains. On the other hand, during that same era, much of Manchester's general population scorned the Millyard as an eyesore, while proponents of modern architecture underappreciated the historical value of its aging factories. More importantly, city fathers threatened the area with demolition by placing the Millyard among their proposed urban renewal projects. Eventually, as a student of architectural history at Harvard University, Langenbach's interest in the Millyard blossomed into a full-fledged research project. Among the early fruits of his efforts was an essay entitled The Amoskeag Millyard, an Epic in Urban Design, published in the April 13, 1968 edition of the Harvard Alumni Bulletin. In words and in a sample of his many original high-quality black and white photographs, he emphasized the uniqueness of the Amoskeag Millyard when compared with textile mills in other cities. Langenbach's essay served as his plea for further study of the Millyard's importance to the people of Manchester and to American history as a whole, in hope of saving it from destruction. Unfortunately, for a significant portion of the Millyard, Langenbach's wish was not to be. In the late 1960s and well into the 1970s, selected mills, including some of the most beautiful buildings that gently curved along the south end of the lower canal, became victims of the wrecking ball. In addition, the urban renewal project called for the filling in of the upper and lower canals, the removal or relocation of railroad tracks, and the widening of Canal Street. Undaunted, Langenbach arranged for the salvage of numerous architectural artifacts, both small and large. Likewise, he saved various examples of mill machinery that had survived well beyond the the demise of the Amoskeag Manufacturing Company in 1936 and had remained in use right up to the closing of the Chicopee Manufacturing Company in 1975. Meanwhile, through his architectural study of the Amoskeag Millyard, Langenbach met Tamara Haraven, a professor of social history at Clark University, whose interest focused on the lives of the Amoskeag Manufacturing Company's textile workers. In the early 1970s, the two scholars collaborated to create what they called the Amoskeag Project. For several years, on a daily basis, the Manchester Historic Association's Amherst Street Library hosted the project's research team, thereby giving team members access to the association's rich Amoskeag archives, and especially to the company's individual employee files, estimated to number between 68,000 and 75,000. This collaboration between the Manchester Historic Association and the Amoskeag Project produced a variety of events and materials: a collection of tape-recorded oral history interviews with former Amoskeag textile workers and officials, a series of lectures, a documentary film that aired on public television, several journal articles, 2 books, and of course Langenbach's major exhibit at the Currier Gallery of Art. Entitled Amoskeag, A Sense of Place and a Way of Life, Langenbach's exhibit was unlike any other that the Currier had hosted prior to 1975, nor ever since. It featured numerous mill artifacts that its creator had salvaged. Visitors could also listen to snippets from interviews with retired Amoskeag employees reminiscing about their daily lives and their work experiences. However, the exhibit's most striking aspect was a collection of large panels displaying blow-ups of many of Langenbach's original photos of exteriors and interiors of mill buildings, as well as a sample of the Manchester Historic Association's collection of archival photos from various periods in the Amoskeag century-long existence. Viewers could literally walk among panel after panel, as if doing so in a mini version of the Amoskeag Millyard itself. While people nowadays have become accustomed to such huge photos similar to those that line the hallway entrance to the present Millyard Museum, they were innovative and quite stunning in the eyes of people living in 1975. On opening day, Sunday, September 21st of that year, between 2 and 6 p.m., at least 500 people, if not more, were present. Many of them were former mill workers, some of whom admitted that they had never set foot in the Currier until that day. For them, it was an emotional experience to find their lives and work worthy of display in an art museum. The exhibit remained in place until Sunday, November 2nd. On that day, an estimated 1,000 visitors packed into the Currier, whose officials deemed it a record crowd. Without a doubt, the greatest legacy of Langenbach's exhibit and that of the Amoskeag Project in general lies in their having awakened Manchester's people to the importance of their city's history. More precisely, Langenbach and his colleague, the late Tamara Haraven, inspired a revolutionary change of attitude toward the Millyard. The powers that be, as well as average citizens, began to view the area no longer as a set of useless, decaying buildings designed to be demolished, but rather to see and to treat the surviving structures as monuments of 19th and early 20th century architectural design that must be preserved and adapted to modern usage. And now, thanks to the vision and hard work of Manchester Historic Association's staff, volunteers, and sponsors, you're all invited to view the present exhibit in honor of Randolph Langenbach and his efforts to preserve for us and for future generations one of Manchester's most important landmarks.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for that overview of the importance of the Amoskeag exhibit and Randolph's work. I'd like to invite Fred Hertz now to come up, Randolph's partner, to speak for a moment.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. This is very moving for us. I just thought I'd explain to you why these photos are here now. So, in 1991, our house burned in what was then the nation's largest urban wildfire in Oakland. It's now been surpassed by Los Angeles. And Randolph got to the house as it was burning and saved about 10 boxes of negatives before he stood there and watched the house burn, including everything else he had saved from Amoskeag. And those negatives sat in a locker for 30 years. There was a lot going on, and there were a lot of challenges. And 30 years ago, about 2 years ago, our friend James Boblak, his computer consultant, said, "I'm going to help you." And it turned out there were about 1,500 4x5 negatives taken as early as the early 60s and mid-60s, and showing all aspects of the demolition of the buildings and many things that even the museum didn't have. And James and his team spent about a year scanning them, converting them to positives, so we could then share them with the museum. And I actually have to thank, I think it was Harry, who when I said to Harry Newman about this, he said, well, these should be on exhibit here. So that's how they came to be here now.
Harry here.
Harry is right there.
Thank you, Fred. And just a note about those photos. As a staff, we picked out some of our favorites and blew them up, and you'll see them in a moment in the museum, in the exhibit. Rest of, there's about 600 more photos that are on a rotating loop on a screen that you can, if you have a few hours, you can come and just look through them. There's some fantastic photos, both of the Millyard before urban renewal began, and then as it was happening and as things were being demolished. Such an important photographic history of where we are. So thank you, Randolph, and thank you, Randolph, for donating them to the Historic Association. We really appreciate that. I do want to ask Randolph's brother Ray if he would be willing to come forward and speak a few words on behalf of the Langenbach family. And I think it's safe to say Ray probably traveled the furthest to come here tonight from Malaysia. So thank you for being here.
Okay. So I'm the little brother, and I'm the one who was waiting in the car, or just standing around waiting for Rand to finish. Oh, just a few minutes, just a few more shots. And every artist has obsession for the visual landscape, the visual scape that they are engaged in. And Rand was absolutely committed to his photography and absolutely committed to the mills and the relationship of his art to the preservation of the structural the city itself, of the interior of the city and the history of the city. So Manchester was absolutely significant to him. He also traveled around to many other countries looking for textile mills. And when I went to Finland, he had been there. When he was in England and photographing the mills there. He was in India photographing the mills there. He was looking for the textile mills all around the world, and as well as other buildings that needed preservation. So his commitment is really twofold. One, to the visuality of the Millyards here, and the integrity. I remember when some of them were torn down, and his mourning of that, and stating that, well, the integrity of the relationship between the buildings had been lost. The fabric had been broken. And when the canals were filled in as well. So he was looking at the aesthetics of the entire environment as well as the aesthetics of the frame. and what the photograph captures. So it's a little bit of that affect, if I can get that across, because my lifeblood is in these as a waiter, as the one who's on the side. Rand, when can we leave?
Well, thank God you didn't stop him.
Yeah, there was no way to stop it. Yes, right. Okay, so that's all, and thanks so much for turning out, and this is really much of the family couldn't be here. Most of the family couldn't be here, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. I just want to take another moment just to thank our staff who worked really hard in putting this exhibit together. Christy Ellsworth, Ashley Holm, Aurora Levesque, and our wonderful Board of Trustees for their support. So thank you. And finally, thank you, Randolph, for entrusting to the MHA your life's work relating to Amoskeag, your photographs, the architectural pieces that you saved, many of which you will see throughout this museum and have been on display in this museum for decades now. So thank you, and thank you for all the work that you've done to change Manchester for the better.
Thank you.
At this time, it's my pleasure to open the exhibit. Ray, would you help me do the honors in opening the doors, and then if our guest of honor can go first and everyone else can follow and enjoy the exhibit. Thank you all again for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Well, we went here, not Washington. Wait, I can say it. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, the canal spills down there and then goes west to the lower level. And then there is where it ended up. Now,
It doesn't really matter, but I would say that one. If I had to choose. Go ahead, Harry, after you.
Too modern. Yes.
People ask, I mean, lovely homes now.